Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us at Codex for another episode of One Shots. I am your host, Tim. This guy over here is Jamie, and we have somebody super awesome that Jamie is going to introduce to you today. Jamie, who do we have joining us?
Today we have the immortal, if I do say so myself, Darryl Banks, the legend in the making, the man who made me a comic book fan. Thank you for being here today, Darryl. Thank you for taking time out.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, this is an episode of One Shots. It's one question for a comic book creator, and having Darryl here today, Darryl, my question to you is, throughout your career, was there a certain comic or story arc that you worked on that meant the most to you?
Well, I'm very blessed and fortunate to have worked on a lot of different characters, and a lot of them meant a lot to me. But I'd have to say, and it's really deep down, it's a really easy question to answer. Is the one thing that really, I wouldn't say overshadows all others, but meant a lot to me both professionally and personally, would have to be this.
Green Lantern versus Silver Surfer.
Yeah, that was the first thing I ever actually got from you.
Is it really? Okay.
Yes.
That would have to be the one, because I haven't done much for Marvel, and having been able to work on that with Ron Mars, who's written for Silver Surfer, and inked by Terry Austin. That was earlier on with getting to know Terry. I mean, you talk about geeking out. I still talk to Terry to this day. And I still, it's never lost on me the icon that he is. I always tease him about it, because to him, he's just some guy that draws. I'm like, are you kidding? So yeah, Green Lantern, Silver Surfer. I think about the one and only time I've got to draw Galactus.
Yes.
And Terrax the Tamer and all that. So the Marvel side of things, and able to combine them with the DC characters that I'm known for, that was a dream. Like I said, I've done a lot of things I feel really great about, but I'd have to say that's my crown jewel right there.
That is amazing. That was a completely unexpected pick.
Yes.
And that's just wonderful that it's not only the work you're iconically known for, but the work you're most proud of doing, which is the combination of Silver Surfer and Green Lantern and the cosmic characters that you worked on too. That's fantastic.
I fully felt like that was going to be one of them. I didn't want to say anything because I'm like, I know there's a lot that you've done, and everything I've read that you have done, which I own almost everything. Like you've knocked out of the park. So it was like a hit or miss for me on that one, but that was a great story. That whole
What
thing.
were some of the other picks do you think I would have probably
well, I thought Emerald Twilight was going to be one of them.
That's definitely toward the top. Absolutely.
I definitely thought well, one of my favorite things about it was just the introduction of Rainer. I thought that single issue might have been the one that carried it all. Or I believe, I'm trying to remember if this was your, because I know you did so many of them, when you switched to Ion.
That was after me.
That was after you? Okay. I was just making sure. I was close there. But I thought definitely it would have been Emerald Twilight for sure. Because I thought that would have been.
That's definitely towards the top, because it's one of those things where I talk to Ron here and there, and by the way, we're working on something currently as we speak.
I was just going to ask you about that.
Hot on the heels of our work that we did on the World War II graphic novel, which known as Harkin's Raiders. I don't know if you get a glare from that. It was a Kickstarter that we worked on, but Ron and I, we just have really good chemistry, I think, and so. Being able to work with him is always great. It always is, because he's a writer, but he thinks very visually, and I think it has a lot to do with when he broke into the industry. He had friends like Jim Starlin. I want to say lived in the same neighborhood, so he had a lot of artists around him. Like the great Bernie Wrightson. Personal friends with. So I think having them around influenced how he writes. So many things that as he includes in the story, he'll talk about how cool will this look, and I thought, I like how you think. And that's his style. He writes great story, great characters, and he thinks very visually. So, but yeah, working with when I first came on Green Lantern, that was definitely great. A great moment. But of course, I could go back to the very beginning, and I've been doing this. It's hard to believe, about 33 years now. Just being able to start in the industry at all. That I remember, when I used to work at Wendy's and ride the bus and work in a shoe department at Marshall's, never knowing that one day I would able to be blessed enough to work in the comic industry, and that day happened. So yeah, there's so many things I could choose, but it's more like Green Lantern Silver Surfer was sort of like a real. It was hard to believe it was real. I remember working, thinking, I just drew a double-page spread that had the origin of the Silver Surfer, and it's inked by Terry Austin. One of those things you got to pinch yourself, like, this is real,
You're like, this is the moment. I don't need to do anything else.
And the sheer fact that, it's surprising to all of us that Kyle Rayner is even something that people even think about. Because remember, when we introduced Kyle, this was the 90s. It was, Image Comics. It was Here Today, Gone Today. We thought, he might be around maybe a year or so. And, it would go back to just Hal and people would forget Kyle. But we never set out to treat it like a gimmick, even though gimmicks were really huge in the 90s. But we didn't approach it that way. We thought, what kind of character can we create that we wanted to see? And I think maybe that's what adds to his lasting interest with people. And we have to thank the fans, because the fans kept the torch lit. They kept the flame alive by supporting the character and really wanting to see more of him. So we're very thankful for that.
That guy right next to me, absolutely.
Yeah, I was one of them.
He's bought more Green Lantern comics than I ever have. So
yeah, I had that whole full run from 1 to 180, including the issue 0 and Millennium stuff. Yeah, it's just, like I said, it's an honor to actually get to sit here and talk to you about it. It just, even hearing it is just gives me chills, because I was one of those people that got it, and I fell in love with the character. Even if at that time it was all gimmicky, I wanted that character to be so predominant in the core that I was hoping every single issue I was reading, I was like, oh, I'll bring back the core. I want to see the interaction here.
It was great seeing Kyle meet the core, like the time travel issues and that sort of thing, because we wanted to show there was this idea at one point, and there was actually a group that really seemed like they focused on hating Ron. They were called, it was an acronym, HEAT, Heat. I forget what it stood for, but anyway, they thought that Ron didn't like Hal Jordan, and that he was trying to erase Hal's legacy. And I'm thinking, now from my point of view, I'm like, well, we just made Hal Jordan at that time the most powerful character in the DC universe when he became Parallax. To me, that's not how you hate a character, by making them bigger and more important. And when things like 0 Hour happened and all that wasn't part of the original plan. It was more like when the powers that be saw that the fans were taking to what we were doing, Hal's role increased. That wasn't from the what we call the Green Lantern office, because DC back then, I don't know if it's still that way, there's tiers. Obviously, the Justice League office is a higher tier than Green Lantern. Batman is probably, Batman and Superman were, I think, the highest tiers of all. And like the higher tiers were really thinking, Hal Jordan's gone from that guy from the Super Friends to, okay, now we're talking. He's something that really could fit into some bigger plans. And that's how, his role really increased. And that's how he got the cape. Because if you remember, when he first became Parallax, he didn't have a cape.
Yeah.
Because that just wasn't part of the plan. And then when the company themselves said, well, we like where we're going with this, he needs to have a cape to feel more, he wasn't really a villain per se, but they wanted him to look more dramatic. And what says drama like a cape? So that's why the cape ended up showing up later.
Yeah, and most of the characters had those long flowing capes in the 90s going into 2000s. It was
right.
Well, all right, Darryl, before we get out of here, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you on social media, and if you have any websites that you want people to go check out, go ahead and let us know about those too.
I spend most of my time online with my Twitter and my Instagram. I have a Facebook, but I don't really post much there.
Okay.
But mainly my Twitter, which is at Real Bankster, and on Instagram, GL Prime.
Right on. Okay, cool. So before we go, Jamie, you got anything else you want to say?
Oh, as always, guys, if you can subscribe, hit that notification bell so you guys don't miss anything. Again, Darryl, thank you so much for being a part of this. You brought a young boy's dream made come true. So thank you again.
My pleasure.
So as always, be kind to one each other, and we will see you guys in the next one.
And don't forget, guys, you can check us out on all the socials. All you got to do is type in the Codex Podcast or Codex Podcast, and that's for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and on Spotify. Once again, my name is Tim. This guy over here is Jamie, and down below is the immortal Darryl Banks. You guys have a wonderful day.
Take care.